Good evening. We are Southeastern 14 presented by Steaks. That's Blake Lovell, the artist formerly known as Blayne Gilmer, and I'm Chris Lee. And we got lots going on. We got college football playoffs and championship games to talk about. We've got your comments to address. We got some basketball. We got a barking dog in the background who's been destroying property tonight. We got all kinds of stuff going on here, gentlemen.
Yeah, maybe there'll be some, Larry Munson once said that there's going to be some property destroyed tonight in a game between Georgia and Florida. Well, that was the case in Chris.
Dogs.
Just from the opening here, if you've watched our videos this week, you've heard my voice deteriorate as we've gone along. And we did the college football playoff rankings one this morning, Chris, I think in record time, because I just could not say a word. So I'm going to sit back on this one. Rusty, send in your comments, laughs, quotes.
We were joking we were going to make you do sign language tonight, just not speak.
I tried to get some signs together. That didn't really work, so.
Hey, it's all going to be good. A big week. Of course, I'm sure y'all have talked to. See, for people who don't know, my wife went into labor on Monday, so we just got home with a newborn. So I've thanks to my mother-in-law being in town, I was able to come over here for about an hour and get this knocked out with you guys. So we'll be talking.
Just means more.
It just means more. That's right. Hey, and if it truly just means more, and you enjoy our content, you can join the Just Means More tier as a member on the side. It's right beside the subscribe button, which you should do if you don't already. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the likes, but also the membership in there, because we love all of our members in here.
So how is Little Zag doing? I just assumed that's what you named him.
No, I didn't name him Drew Timmy II. I thought about it, didn't do it. Adam Morrison was in contention as well.
Your wife may have had a say.
Yeah, Wilkes Dean Gilmer is his name. So yes, his nickname will be the Assassin. So
well, congratulations to you. Again, this will be a listener-centered show tonight. I guess we spent some time today, well, I know we did, talking about the college football playoff. I guess the big thing is the ranking of 5 and 6. Ohio State at 5, Alabama at 6, and then Tennessee at 7, which sort of removes some mystery probably of what would happen should TCU and USC lose this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the most anticipated 5-6 ranking you've ever seen before. Just wondering who would be where. Most people were ready to, just go crazy if Alabama had been jumped up to 5, and now people are antagonizing poor Ohio State fans on social media and all this kind of stuff. Now, what if LSU beats Georgia? That makes Alabama's loss look to LSU look better, and all these kind of scenarios in there. So. But the way it looks to me is that if USC falters, Ohio State's in, and that's pretty much, I think, the only caveat to the Final Four right now.
How do we feel about that? Blake and I had an opinion on it this morning, but I'd like to hear a little bit from you.
And feel on what about Ohio State being the one that could get in if USC falters?
Yeah.
I haven't, be honest with you, I've been a little sleep deprived and haven't looked into the nuances of the rankings as much, but I would be curious, and you may have it in front of you, Chris. I would be curious to know the strength of schedule and strength of record of Ohio State versus Alabama. I would be curious to know that, because I know that Notre Dame's out there, but man, people give a lot of credit to a Notre Dame loss or a Notre Dame close win that, yeah, I know Notre Dame beat Clemson, but Clemson's garbage, and we know that. And, Notre Dame also lost to Marshall. at home. I mean, so I don't know why people are putting so much stock in Notre Dame as a quality win for Ohio State. But I personally, if it was me, I would have put Alabama at 5 over Ohio State. But at the same time, I don't know how you can put Alabama higher than Tennessee when Tennessee beat them head to head. Now, I don't think Tennessee's as good as they were at that point because now they no longer have Hendon Hooker. But I would have either argued for either Alabama or Tennessee being 5, and I think Ohio State should just drop into oblivion after they got their, stuff pushed in versus Michigan.
Blayne,
We
just
looked
quickly,
that up this morning.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
I'll
Blayne.
give it to you, Chris, if anyone can hear me. Ohio State's strength of schedule 34, strength of resume is 4. Alabama's strength of schedule 8, strength of resume is 5.
Yeah,
ESPN.
Alabama should be at 5 all day long. I mean, what was y'all's take on that, Chris? Do y'all totally disagree?
I'm mixed. Alabama doesn't have as many good wins as you'd think, and that's the problem.
Oh, I mean, I know they don't have. I know that they don't have what you would call banner wins, but I think if you put Ohio State in the SEC, they have probably 3 losses this year. I mean, I just think the SEC as a whole is a grind, and we saw that. We like to make fun of Jimbo Fisher and Texas A&M and how they've struggled, but you saw, when things come together for Texas A&M, that's a tremendously talented team, and they pushed Alabama to the wire, and they beat the pants off of LSU. I mean, so Vanderbilt beating 2 SEC teams that Florida beat Utah, who's in the Pac-12 championship this weekend. I mean, I just think the SEC is a meat grinder, and it's a harder league to compete in. And I think that's why, either Alabama or Tennessee would be more deserving than Ohio State.
Best 6 wins: Ohio State's at Penn State, Notre Dame, Iowa, Wisconsin, at Maryland, Michigan State. Alabama's are at Texas, at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, at Arkansas, A&M, and Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, so what are we really comparing? We're really comparing the Penn State win and the Notre Dame win versus Alabama's top 2 wins. Right?
Well, the other thing is Ohio State's got 1 less loss.
Yeah, well, because of who they played, in my opinion. But you do have to win. You can only win the games that are on your schedule. So, kudos to doing that. But then it's kind of like Tennessee. One reason Tennessee fell off so hard is not only did they lost to South Carolina,
how the loss came. Yeah, and that's where you've got the best argument, right?
Yeah, because Alabama's losses. People talk about, this is a bad year for Alabama. A bad year from Alabama looks like winning games like normal teams full of regular humanoids win football games, and then losing 2 at the buzzer. I mean, so it's a certain standard I think Alabama gets held to. They're a victim of their own success. You know what I'm saying? So, and there's some Alabama fatigue out there. So I think that's one big reason. There's probably a lot of Big Ten strong voices in that room, in my opinion, and they probably had a lot to say about Ohio State being 5.
Yeah, the Bama fatigue is an interesting angle, and I get it. Here's the weird thing, guys. You're seeing, I don't know if it's NIL or what it is. This is, I think, a good topic for conversation tonight. You're about to have a playoff that may not include Alabama, Ohio State, or Clemson.
Yeah. I mean, there's parity there, and people want to talk about expanding and stuff like you said, but it's going to be 3 more years, it looks like, before anyways, the Rose Bowl and other people like that holding things up, as usual. Over on over on Barstool, Brandon Walker says the Rose Bowl is the worst thing to ever happen to college football. I tend to agree, because they are very particular, and they get in the way of a lot of supposed progress at times. I think it's you better learn to live with it, at least for another 3 years. And that means the SEC is going to be even more difficult, because at least for one of those years, maybe 2 of those years, you're going to have Texas and Oklahoma in there as well. So I think it may be for these last 3 years, you may only see one SEC team get in on the 4-team playoff.
Yeah. I had a thought on that, and I've lost it for just a moment. Blake, what did we hit this morning that hasn't come up in that discussion? I feel like we're leaving something out. I guess the big thing we had, of course, the obvious takeaway is TCU and USC are going to the playoff with wins. I think that the big thing you're watching, I think that we concluded this morning that it's going to be hard for another team to crash the party. Like, even if TCU wins, I think TCU's getting in. So Alabama's probably getting shut out regardless.
Yeah, I think TCU's in, win or lose. It's my stance. So
Yeah,
I think USC's the one in danger, unless they get blown out or something, maybe. But
yeah, like what if they go in there and Kansas State, Will Howard and company just run wild on them, similar to, kind of in a wrestling reference, if Wildcat Mania just runs crazy on you, brother, over there, and takes care of TCU in a 45-14 beatdown. That's not a great data point to have for the community to look like at the last thing, but still, it may not be enough to knock them out. So yeah, I would say that it's the only team with hope of getting in is Ohio State.
Yep.
Yeah, and the with Kansas State too, there's also the fact that K-State, well, with TCU, I mean, TCU's already beaten K-State once. So, like, even if K-State wins this, that's sort of splitting the series. I don't know if it matters, but it just seemed like the committee, if you look at everything, that's where it's going to go. And I think Alabama really needed to get ahead of Ohio State to get there.
Oh, yeah. I think that's why everybody said, whoever ends up at 5 yesterday, that's it.
Someone asked in the chat if LSU's got a shot at Georgia. I'm going to let you take that for just a minute, Blayne.
I think that LSU will has things that can hurt Georgia. Particularly, I think Kayshon Boutte and Malik Neighbors matched up against Keely Ringo and Kamari Lassiter is something that, if Jaden Daniels has time, and I don't know about the ankle, I know he was in a walking boot to start the week, and I know that he's going to give it a go to play, and I think he will play. But even if he's somewhat limited, if Georgia cannot get the pass rush, then I think that LSU's wide receivers could hurt Georgia, at least initially, hurt their secondary. So I would not be surprised to see LSU do some scoring, potentially early scoring in this game. But I just think overall, Georgia is better on both lines of scrimmage than LSU. One, because of more depth. People forget that, Georgia sometimes, for no good reason at all, other than, I guess, to keep guys from going into the portal, these 5-star offensive linemen they have, they'll play 7 offensive linemen in a game just regularly, just to get them in there. Marius Mims coming in there, Devin Willock getting in there at different times. Even Warren Erickson has been a guy who's been named to all SEC teams before, and now he's relegated to a backup guard. So they really got 8 they could roll with. And I think the Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers in the blocking game. We know what they do as receivers, but Darnell Washington is such a huge difference maker as far as a blocker. I think that Georgia's run game is clicking. Kenny McIntosh is playing the best ball of his career. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a game at halftime, but I think Georgia's depth and talent pulls away at the end of it. And I've just kind of grown to not doubt Kirby Smart in big games anymore. He seems to have cured those ills.
Yeah, I feel like where Georgia can be a little vulnerable, and look, we're having to pick nits here, okay? You've seen Stetson Bennett get a little careless with the ball in stretches this year. Now, I have a feeling he's going to be a little more focused in this type of atmosphere, but that is my one concern for Georgia.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm not concerned about Stetson Bennett at all. Like, I think when you've seen, if anything, Stetson Bennett thinks he's 10 foot tall and bulletproof sometimes, Chris. And I think against when he knows that he's facing lesser competition, he tries some things that aren't the wisest thing in the world. But in an SEC championship game and in all the other big games he's had this year, and quite frankly, he was the MVP of the Orange Bowl and of the national championship game last year with stellar performances. I think if Georgia were to struggle or lose in this game, I don't think it's because I think the passing game is going to pick up, and also too, finally, A.D. Mitchell should be back for Georgia because he played in the Georgia Tech game just a little bit, got in there right at the end. I saw him. I was in the stadium. I saw him warm up and run routes pregame. So just having him almost similar to how when they had George Pickens lined up out there, at the end, even though they weren't going to use him tremendously, he's a guy that can stretch the field. And we saw what happened in the national championship game. It was on 3rd and 18. It was Keely Ring, or it was A.D. Mitchell that made the big play in the corner of the end zone. So,
Blake, let's do this. I'm going to give us a quick word from our sponsor at Steaks. If you're just joining us, Blake's voice is almost gone. I joked earlier in the day he sounds like a 90-year-old woman. As fun as that would be for everyone, harsh can be accurate though. But anyway, we're going to give our man Blake a little break. How about this? I'll after a word from our sponsor, you just want to put up some of the better comments and questions and maybe save your breath a bit. Okay. All right. I'll tell you who else gets thumbs up. Steaks. If you've not been to Steaks, what are you waiting on? Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Steaks, players can cement their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Steaks and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Go to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. It is a predictions app, not a betting app. Free to join, free to play, help out those who help us. Basketball note, I'm getting texts from people asking me what happened in this Vandy VCU game tonight. There's a tweet out there of a cop literally escorting Jerry Stackhouse out of the gym in Richmond. VCU.
I'll look into that, Chris.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it to you guys so you can see what I'm looking at. But Stackhouse lost his mind in that game late.
All right, here's a comment from Tyler from earlier. I think there's a joke in there somewhere. But if we want to weigh in on the Hugh Freeze situation, I know Chris and I did a video whatever day that was. Can add some of that in now, but
right.
Man.
There you go.
I think it's a good hire.
Yeah, it's a good hire. It's a really good hire. He's going to get Auburn turned around in short order, is my opinion. And from a recruiting standpoint, I would say this. I won't say the names because I never like to spoil the decisions of young men, but I know 2 young men that Georgia and Alabama are both recruiting very, very hard out of the state of Alabama that as soon as this hire was made, I think it solidified that they were going to Auburn. So
interesting.
Immediately, 2 5-stars going to be to Auburn right off the bat, and I think that you're going to see an uptick in Auburn's recruiting, which it has to, because I think it's like 60 something in the country right now, or something along those lines, according to the Rivals rankings. But recruiting is going to be there. They're going to utilize the portal, and we know what kind of coach that Hugh Freeze is. Off the field, failures aside, the man knows how to coach some football, and will definitely be competitive in the SEC West.
I know that Hugh Freeze has been a punchline. I'm kind of of the opinion at some point you've had your punishment. He lost, I think his buyout was $17 million when he was fired with cause from Ole Miss. The public humiliation, the jokes, all the things that come with that. It's been 5 years now. Now, look, if some of the same stuff rears its head, then you probably need to move on. But
yeah, well, I don't think anybody here on this, on the three of us, I don't think anybody in this chat would want the worst things they've ever done in their life aired out in front of the public as well. And I'm personally a guy that believes in some in redemption and grace and those redeeming qualities. So hey, I'm not any different than Hugh Freeze when it comes to certain elements of life. That's how none of us are. So why not just let him? He's served his time, like I said, Chris.
I think it would be great if he got it turned around. If the story ended better than it left off 5 years ago, and it's good for Hugh Freeze, it's good for the league, it's good for Auburn. So yeah, I hope that it works out well for Auburn and Hugh Freeze.
Membership comment. See that little symbol right there for Justin Holland, guys? You can have that too, and also get all of your comments like Justin's. We'll make sure that we hit them because you're a member of the Just Means More tier. And he says, "Is Nick Saban still the top dog in the SEC?" I'm telling you, Nick Saban's life got a little bit harder today. I promise you, with Hugh Freeze being at Auburn. One, recruiting. I'm telling you, the state of Alabama is going to be harder to recruit in because Hugh Freeze is there. Plus, he kept Cadillac Williams, which was humongous, keeping him on staff. Two, I don't see how you can say Nick Saban's still currently the top dog with the success that Kirby Smart has had, both in recruiting and on the field now. This run that Kirby Smart and Georgia are on, especially if they go and win the next 3 games. I mean, how much more of a coaching statement can you make to lose 15 NFL draft picks, set an all-time record, and then follow it up by winning the national championship once again? And at the very least, heading into the conference championship game, you're undefeated for a second straight season. I mean, pretty dominant in my opinion, Chris.
I think if Georgia wins another one, dogs are barking. You can hear them. You've got them excited.
It's a sign.
And maybe it is. I think if Georgia wins the whole thing this year, then yes, I think the torch has passed. I think if not, you still got to defer to how many national titles does the guy have? 7?
No. I'm not saying he's not the great. He's the greatest of all time. But I think the way I read, he's Justin's. It was said, is Nick Saban still the top dog in the SEC? I think that means currently, like right now, is he still the? And I don't know. I think he's been passed because of what Georgia did last year and what they're doing now. Kind of at least for now. So what have you done for me lately, league? Just ask Sam Pittman the difference between how he felt at the end of last year and the end of this year. Just ask Josh Heupel the difference in how he felt, 4 weeks ago and how he probably feels right now. So I mean, it's all about staying in the groove, staying on top. Now I agree with you. I think if Alabama misses the playoff again next year, then for sure there's no debate. But I mean, look at Clemson. Clemson's now viewed as a joke and an afterthought after only missing the playoffs for the last 2 seasons. So,
yeah, I think I need to see a second from Georgia before I go there. But I mean, like right now, if you hit the pause button and don't add a lot of context from previous years, then sure. Georgia's won umpteen games in a row, won it last year, only unbeaten team in the league this year where everybody else lost at least 2 games. Yeah, I get it. But
and it's also too, this is Kirby Smart's 5th SEC championship game appearance in the last 6 years. And if they get there to the national championship this year, it'd be 3 national championship appearances in his 6 years at Georgia. It's pretty
well,
tough.
Yeah, but you cited schedule on Ohio State a minute ago. Let's not pretend it's not easier to get there from the East than it is from the West for most years.
And that's helped. You still got to do it. Just ask Tennessee.
Right.
Went to South Carolina and got their brains beat in, and Georgia beat that same team by 48-7. So in the same place.
I'm going to ask you something before we hit Tyler's question. Actually, Tyler, you know what? We're going to answer your question Sunday night on our major award show, which we are preparing for as we speak. So we don't want to give anything away there yet. I mentioned earlier, you're probably not going to see if things play out as expected, which things never do. But you could see Ohio State, Clemson, and Alabama all home.
Yeah.
You could see some new blood. USC's never been to the title game or to the playoffs. I don't think TCU has been. Are we seeing NIL and other things change the game and make for more parity? And I was looking in the SEC standings too, and we kind of noted something that was interesting. You had a lot of same records in the league this year. Nobody won 0 or 1 games in the league. Nobody won 7. Nobody won 5. You had a lot of 4-4, 3-5 top teams in the league this year. Paired with what is happening nationally, are we seeing a leveling of the playing field, or is this just a one-off kind of thing?
Oh, no, I definitely think that there's going to be a leveling of the playing field because of NIL and the transfer portal, just in terms of the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Ohio States. They're still probably going to have the best 22 to 34 players collectively on their rosters. But it's that where they right now they have probably players 34 through 50 that give them that extra elite depth and for special teams and all that other kind of stuff that are going to get spread out into other places. That is what's going to make a little bit of the difference, because literally there were times when Alabama, Georgia over the last few years, even Ohio State for that matter, would have guys on their, I guess, given a scout look, because most of the time you only go 1s and 2s. Rarely do you do a full reps with 3s. So there were guys given scout looks and playing a scout team that literally could start for some other Power 5 program. So, it's I think that is what's going to change a little bit because of NIL and things like that. You're going to see some of the depth, but still I think the elite of the elite are going to get their guys that they really, really want in terms of their targets, A and even high B, but I think their low B, high C targets that they're going after may not end up there and may raise the level of competition elsewhere.
How crazy is it going to be when the portal gets unleashed here in 5 days?
It's already happening. They're trying to say, that it's not, but there's already back channeling and things going on. People, you'll see come the 5th when the portal opens, you'll see some decisions being made relatively quickly, and that doesn't happen without some tampering going on. So people can say that there's not, but there's plenty of it going on already. So
you're seeing some issues.
Well,
trying to think of how to say this. And I know this isn't like an original thought, but I know some specifics behind this. Players are starting to find out what their teammates are getting paid.
Yeah.
And it's causing problems because in a lot of places, it is going to recruiting instead of to performance.
Oh, yeah.
And when you're seeing kids who don't play get paid a lot more than kids who are major players on their teams, you have issues.
Oh yeah, I mean for sure. It's absolutely being used for inducement, which it's not supposed to, but that's what it's being used for. These collectives are getting more power than I think coaches want them to have, and quite honestly, the collectives at Alabama and Georgia are kind of being held more back because you got two more authoritarian type coaches, Kirby Smart and Nick Saban, who want to control everything. So they're not giving the collective the free reign. And I think you're going to see Georgia and Alabama over the next couple of cycles get hurt a little bit in recruiting by the NIL, because there's going to be some like Josh Heupel with the I think it's the Spire company is what it's called, Tennessee's collective that they have out there. There is no reins on it. Josh Heupel's saying, go get them, and I think you're going to see Tennessee's recruitment come way up. Florida, Billy Napier is not holding that one back at all. So I think it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic of it, but. Yeah, it's gonna be fascinating.
Justin's comment here, I think, is interesting. Trying to think of the author that wrote about this.
Thanks for the super chat, Justin.
Yes, thank you, Justin. Good grief, he's written a million things, and you know the name if I said it.
Plato.
I don't know why I've drawn a blank.
Aristotle.
No, more contemporary. I can picture him. Anyway, what an interesting. I'm going to look like Gandalf before I remember his name.
Forrest Gump.
This is killing me. Anyway, the whole thing was about. It's funny what people will do things for free, gladly, and not complain. But when you throw money into it, and even large sums of money, it completely changes the dynamic. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that kids played for free before, because I think a lot of the good ones didn't. But now that it's taken on a different form, that dynamic is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's gonna be interesting to see how you can keep egos and stuff intact. I know that. I know that guys that have had the most of the success up top. I talk to recruits that when you talk to recruits that are getting recruited by Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State, there tends to be a lot of overlap there. A lot of the same guys that they're going after. And all of those recruits tell me that the message they hear from Saban, Smart, and Ryan Day is that, yes, you're going to have NIL opportunities if you come here. However, what we're going to do is we're going to develop you so that you have a whole lot more commas in that number that you'll be making when you get to the NFL. They're saying that number is going to outweigh the NIL number there. But listen, if you're talking about group of 5 schools and you're talking about guys who are potentially role players for teams like like SEC programs or things like that, absolutely. A group of 5 or maybe an up and coming, Big 12 school like Cincinnati making the jump, especially if Deion Sanders ends up going to Cincinnati. Let me tell you something. If Deion Sanders ends up going to Cincinnati, that's what people better be scared of across the country, because you give Deion a school like that that's had some success, and the NIL that man's going to be able to cobble together and put him in the Big 12 as well. Dangerous. I'm just telling you. People laugh with the old Deion thing. Deion Sanders knows football. He knows how to coach football, and you give him a premier job, either Cincinnati and listen, Colorado is terrible. They're worse. They're like
horrible recruiting base.
Yeah, but they're horrible recruiting base. But like, even just Deion just being there, I guarantee you, if he takes that job, they'll be better. They'll be better the next year. I mean, just because he's going to bring his son's coming with him, okay, and his son is a really good quarterback, okay. So things like that. It's going to be interesting. I agree. Hey, appreciate you, Justin, and then look at our man Juan, a member down here. He says Deion could win a national title at the right school. I agree. I think Deion Sanders. Yeah. It's not about you don't have to be some football savant. Okay, you got to be able to manage people, motivate people, and hire good coaches.
Malcolm Gladwell's the guy that wrote the book.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I mean, nothing against him. I think he's a great man. Do we think Gene Chizik is some kind of just otherworldly coach? I don't think, but he won a national championship. Why? He had a great quarterback. He hired a good staff, and got some momentum. I think that you talk about a guy like Deion, if he hires the right coordinators, which he's already brought. I think didn't he bring Mike Zimmer, who used to be an NFL head coach, onto his staff at Jackson State? I mean, grief,
Well, look at the coaches that have won national titles. Ed Orgeron's won one. Les Miles has won one. Gene Chizik has won one. I mean, Chizik bombed out at Iowa State.
Yeah,
goes to Auburn with the right players, you can win. I mean, I don't know that if you're Deion Sanders, you take Colorado, because I don't think I do. I think I wait it out.
I take Cincinnati, or maybe even take USF. But the thing about USF is they're going to stay, I believe, in the American, so they won't be a Power 5. It won't be a Power 5 job. Cincinnati is the one that I would go after if I were Deion, but we're way off the SEC path here now, but I don't even know how we got here. But anyways, we're talking about Deion. So,
well, it's the dynamics of stuff, and I really wish we had the 12-team playoff this year. By the way, I know you talked about the Rose Bowl earlier.
Hate it.
Do we have any resolution on that as of today? Because I think they had a deadline to kind of get with the program, or
I think
it's going to screw up the playoffs earlier.
I think the Rose Bowl is so stuck in its ways and its line of thinking that I won't be surprised if the Rose Bowl totally gets left out of the playoff thing in conversation in the future. It's a wonderful spectacle, beautiful stadium. I went out. I've been to a Rose Bowl game before. Tremendous atmosphere. But all of the minutia and the absolute red tape that goes along with it that holds up a lot of potential progress in college football has been bad for college football, and bad for anybody that wants to see expansion. So I think that they could possibly get left on the outside looking in, because I just don't think that they'll change.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I mean, college football has changed, and they've got to get with it. We need to get to the 12-team thing as quickly as we can. I I know the objection against it is that, like, the games, even with the 14 playoff, haven't been great. But as I said earlier, you're seeing the dynamic in college football already change. You're seeing different teams that, if things go the way that they're expected to go Saturday, are going to be in the playoffs. And some of the teams that are usually there are not going to be. I think this would have been a fascinating year for the 12-team playoff. You could have seen again, if things go to form and Alabama getting in as a 6 and maybe winning the whole thing, would be interested to see what Tennessee could do with Joe Milton if given a chance. They're not as good, but they're still pretty powerful. I mean, just the fact you see this in the NCAA, right? And for basketball, a team gets its name called on Sunday, and it's one of the greatest things in the history of certain programs just to get in. What's it going to be for a Tulane or I don't know, somebody in Appalachian State or somebody like that? I just think that getting some of those teams in the hunt at a time when there seems to be a little bit of a movement towards parity with all these market factors, and I don't necessarily like a lot of them, but I do like the fact it seems to be creating more parity. I just think this is about, in my mind, college football is about to be a much more interesting game in a couple years than it's been in our lives.
Maybe, or maybe it ceased to exist altogether. Who knows?
No. There's too much money and interest involved. They will. I know that the portal and all those things are really screwing up the game. Roster tampering. I hate a lot of the stuff that's going on. But eventually there's going to be some sort of common sense. There may be legislation. There's too much money at stake for this thing to just go belly up.
Oh, well,
there's too many people who care.
As we just talked, a tweet just went out that said the Rose Bowl has signed an agreement to allow 12-team playoff field by 2024. So they didn't want to get left out in the cold, Chris. We were wrong. We overestimated their stubbornness. So they're going to allow a 12-team playoff by 2024. So, you could possibly just have 1 year left of the 4-team playoff.
Yeah.
All right, Chris.
Won't be soon enough.
Time's question here. Tyler, I'm trying for you. National Coach of the Year thoughts. I'll take this one off the screen.
Yeah, he's got to be the National Coach of the Year, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's him, maybe Lincoln Riley, but I would go Dykes right now.
I mean, give Sonny Dykes Caleb Williams, and it doesn't. You don't have to coach when you got Caleb Williams on the field, in my opinion.
Right. By the way, did I see Bryce Young is the number 1 pick in ESPN's mock draft? Am I dreaming that?
He should be. He should be. I'm telling you. You talk about Alabama. Listen, without Bryce Young, it's similar to Caleb Williams. If Caleb Williams wasn't on USC has 4 or 5 losses this year. If Alabama doesn't have Bryce Young, they could have 4 or 5 losses this year. And I say that saying with what's on the screen, I think Alabama and Tennessee are better football teams than Ohio State. But that's because they have those kind of transcendent players on the field like Bryce Young. And I'm not sure that Ohio State – I know Ohio State has Marvin Harrison Jr. That is unbelievable, but C.J. Stroud is nowhere close to what Young or Hooker were this year for Alabama and Tennessee. I think Bryce Young should – if I have the number 1 pick, I'm taking him all day long unless I can get Roger Goodell to sign a waiver to let Caleb Williams come out early. Then I take Caleb Williams number 1.
Yeah. I mean, I think Bryce Young is just – I'm not going to say he's zero risk because there's the size issue. He had some shoulder troubles this year, but he's just so good with the ball. He's so cool under pressure. He's so accurate. Accuracy is the big thing you want in your quarterbacks. I take him all day.
He sees things that most quarterbacks don't see, like before other quarterbacks see it.
Yeah. I think that drive against Auburn last year to win the game was just put that on loop if you've got any questions about that kid, right?
Surgical, as Stuart Scott used to say, surgical with it.
Okay, let's see. One, how big of a blowout will UGA's first round playoff game? I would put them as a double-digit favorite over all potential teams on a neutral field. Right now, I guess we project them to play Southern Cal.
Unless Southern Cal blows the doors off of Utah. And if they come out and beat Utah by like 30 or 40, I think that you would see the committee want to get the best matchup possible out there between Michigan and Southern Cal, which is the more marketable matchup, in my opinion. And they could put them out in the Fiesta Bowl, which is closer to Southern Cal, so maybe better for ticket sales as well. Because if Georgia wins the SEC championship game, they're going to be playing in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. So I just don't know if that's great travel for USC fans out to Atlanta.
So you think they jump a one-loss TCU in that scenario? I don't. That to me is a hard sell.
Well, I'm saying, like, let's say TCU squeaks out a win in their championship game. I know they're undefeated, but I'm just telling you, for the matchup purposes of it, at the end of the day, Chris, this is not just to determine a champion. This is about television ratings as well. And I think putting two brands like Michigan and Southern Cal against one another is more marketable than even a Georgia Southern Cal game. I think you would probably see Georgia and TCU play each other, and Michigan and Southern Cal play each other. But I don't care if it's Michigan or I don't care if it's TCU or Southern Cal. I don't think either one of them are very good defensively, and I think Georgia would just run the ball down both of their throats. So.
Yeah, USC's given up, as someone points out, a lot of points, 26.5 a game, although TCU's 24.5 a game, so not a lot better.
Yeah, they're both
but TCU's played a much more balanced schedule start to finish.
Yeah, but they've also been bad in a lot of defensive. The reason that they've won is because of elite running back play, and Max Duggan just Max Duggan has came up nails for TCU over and over again. Like, that kid is tough, and he plays well under pressure. So,
Michigan, Georgia would be fascinating.
Or would it? Because we saw that last year.
Well, yeah, but
and they beat them like they stole something.
But it's not the same Georgia team. That was a defense for the ages and then some. I mean, Georgia's is great this year. Don't get me wrong, but it's not what Georgia had a year ago.
I don't know if there'll ever be a team like Georgia had a year ago. I mean, 5 first rounders, set all on defense. That's pretty tough. And Nakobe Dean probably should have been a first rounder, but a fake news about his shoulder getting out there knocked his draft status down. So, man, tough to beat. But yet here we are, 12 weeks, 12 games in, and they're the number one scoring defense in the country.
Speaking of dogs, I may murder one before the night's over.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen, if you want,
it has not stopped. My wife and my kids are gone. They're usually handling him at this point in the night, and he's just losing his mind. My apologies.
If you want to help pay Chris's cruelty to animals fee that he's going to have to pay, you need to sign up as Justin has. You see that membership little logo beside Justin Holland's name? That's because he's a member on the It Just Means More. Oh, we go Mortal Kombat on you right here. Oh, sorry, I was clicking it too. Finish him talking about Oreo. But no, so if you want to help pay Chris's fee for abusing his dog, then you need to.
No. Don't do that.
Hey, if I haven't killed him already, it's probably not going to happen.
Oh my goodness.
It was a long night before we got
week,
here.
my voice goes out, and this is what we've resorted to. So now you all see who's actually in control here. All right, carry on, Blayne. Keep going with the pitch.
I was just saying, join the tier. I think everybody knows we're having fun. I was just playing around.
There you go. Knock, knock.
Let's see. Juan's got something here. Yeah. That's a little harsh. I don't think I have a beef with what the committee's done right now.
I have more of a beef with what they've done in the positions probably 10 through 25 than I do the top 10. Some of the you go look at some of those rankings over teams from 10 down, like Utah over UCLA. Well, UCLA beat Utah. You know, like what are we doing with all this kind of stuff? There's several instances of that down there. So,
yeah. Bowl games. I guess we'll know those this time next week, obviously. We got, 11 SEC teams headed to bowls. That's going to be fun. And some of the teams that, like Kentucky, kind of limping into a bowl game, but then beats Louisville. Maybe Will Levis has got some time to get a bit healthier.
Will he play, though? I mean, my question is,
that's a good point.
Does he risk it? Because I think no matter what people, and I know there's going to be comments as soon as I say this, I'll probably see comments. You're probably going to see Will Levis end up being a top 10 pick, and it's not because he was some, field general that, just looked great all the time for Kentucky. It's because he's, 6'3.5", 6'4", 230 pounds, can run like a deer, and has a howitzer attached to the right side of his body. That's why. And that's what NFL teams like to see. 2, I did see some quotes from anonymous NFL scouts out there that said they were actually more impressed by Will Levis this year because it showed that he can be tough and he can still make plays when having a bad offensive line, which when you are drafted early in the NFL, you're probably going to have a bad offensive line, Chris, to start off with.
Yeah, but there were some poor decisions that went with that too.
Oh, yeah, but I think that's a byproduct of not trusting that you're going to be protected all the time. I think you can your clock can get sped up a little bit.
Let me ask you guys
this,
Chris.
Go ahead, Blake.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I want to hear. You
have to use these.
That's all I had, Chris. You sorry. That's all I had. I don't have anything.
Well, you do sometimes see the quarterback drop as guys get just absolutely picked apart between here and the draft. And that's going to happen to Will Levis.
Maybe.
Remember this time a year ago, Malik Willis was a top 10 pick, goes in the 3rd round. I know they're different players. I get that, but that's my point.
I just think last year there weren't as many teams needing quarterbacks, though. I mean, I could easily see a team that is built on the run, like the Houston Texans, who have Dameon Pierce as their running back, that you can tell Lovie Smith wants to build around. I could easily see them taking Will Levis or something like that. I mean, I think that could happen. I don't think he's going to fall out of the 1st round, but just based off of everything I've seen. He may not end up going top 10 overall, but I think he'll end up going day 1.
Steven, I take issue with this a little bit. Will Levis has been fairly mobile. He's been hurt this year. He was Penn State's running option, I believe, before he transferred, was he not? Like that was the book on Will Levis. He was a good runner. And he's run for some yardage in his career between Kentucky and Penn State. Not as much Kentucky, but I think that you get him healthy. I don't think mobility is an issue for him. Do you, Blayne?
No, I think he can run. I think he's a guy that will probably put down, if he runs in the combine, I'd probably say he's probably going to run a high 4.6 40, somewhere along there, and that's picking him up and putting him down pretty good.
Chris, you're on mute.
Who gave up the? That's got to be Vandy, right?
No, he said in a single game.
Yeah.
That'd be Tennessee. They gave up 63.
Oh no, it's Missouri. That's right.
Oh.
Didn't Tennessee get 66 on Missouri?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was 66.
65, maybe.
Yeah. All right. This is roughly the 5-minute warning. So get your questions in. Blake, I'll just have you throw those up there.
Justin wants to revert back to the BCS. I love how full circle we've come. Everybody hated the BCS, and now they're wondering. Let's just let the sports writers vote on it like they did back in the 90s.
I don't
think
think
send your scores in
system
for the game. Georgia LSU, send your scores. By the way, my question earlier, I'm going to try to get this in. We talked about Levis not playing in a bowl game and that kind of stuff. Is there anything that can be done with bowls at this point? With a transfer portal, NIL, players going to the draft, like what do you do?
Yeah, no, I gave y'all the answer the other day in our group chat. Basketball.
Yeah, that's true. You did.
Basketball has the NIT and they have the CBI. So in football, there should be an NIT and there should be a CFBI tournament where it's single elimination tournament for those teams that get invited. All of the, it would end up being a total of however many. If there's 12 at the top, maybe it's a total of 50-something, 60-something teams total across the country between the three tournaments. And the winner of the NIT and the CFBI, they each get $1 million prize towards their team's collective. And then I'm sure that money would be, dispersed among the current players and also, also go towards some recruiting as well. So I think you just got to attach money to it.
Don't you think eventually we'll have some sort of a revenue sharing model? There'll be some kind of collective bargaining. Players will get checks based on TV revenue. And like if you opt out of a bowl game, you don't get your game check.
Those conferences don't let go of that money. I don't know.
Well, I don't know that they're eventually going to have much of a choice.
Yeah, if they bring up if there's some kind of antitrust lawsuit or something like that goes before the Supreme Court or something, I could see that.
Well, you've already had Kavanaugh talk about it, about how the business model has been flatly illegal, and he's not wrong. You couldn't do this anywhere else. I mean, eventually it'll be, and see, that's where I think you could have more parity, is if everybody's got, a cap that's based on TV share, that kind of thing, and it's not just the free for all with NIL. Now the trick will be, you make NIL legit advertising deals like Bryce Young's Dr. Pepper deal, but how you regulate that and that not being influenced by who goes where, I don't know. But in a perfect world, that's what I'd like to see. I think, again, you throw that in the 12-team playoff in there together, college football becomes a lot more like the NFL than it becomes, take 6 teams every year to make the playoff, and you pretty much know you're going to get 4 right before the season when you make your picks. Which I think that's boring. I'm sorry. I love college football, but it's not exciting when you kind of know, okay, here's the teams that have got a shot, and if you're not in that group of 6 or 7, you can forget it.
Yeah, but at the same time, like you said, I don't think anybody would have picked USC and TCU to be in those positions this year. So
no, but that's the exception to the rule. So.
Or Michigan last year. I mean, there's different,
Yeah. All right, let's get parting thoughts and questions here. Blake, anything we've not hit that's worth a minute here?
No.
No, he's going to go rest his voice.
Poor guy.
And I got to go get a newborn over here. So
wrap it up, Chris.
Well, yeah. Thank you for watching tonight. It was a less eventful show than usual just because there's one game this week. Our man Blake's got a cold. Our man Blayne is running on fumes from being the father to a newborn. In any case, we will do – Blake, when's our next live stream? I guess we'll do something Sunday.
Let's not commit to anything just yet, Chris, until I can talk. So,
right.
Let's hold off for just we'll let you know.
We will have bowl reaction, playoff reaction at some point. We got a lot of basketball content coming. We've already started that. We did power rankings this week. There's tons of games going on right now. So we'll start to slowly shift the focus a little more towards basketball. But, of course, there's a ton of football to follow between now and the end of the season. We thank our presenting sponsor, Steaks, for helping make this possible. For Blayne Gilmer and Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee of Southeastern 14. Thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. It costs you nothing, and we'll see you again soon.